Good afternoon, wicked spammers, bear enthusiasts, and friends of Dratnos. Today I am Tettles, joined by assorted guests, and today we're going to be talking about things such as target capping and why was Outlaw Rogue omitted from the target cap discussion? The world may never know. For those who've been living under a rock for approximately the past, I don't know, what has it been, a week now? 4 days apparently, never mind, not a week. Blizzard has made some absolutely massive changes to the target capping. Dratnos, what do you think about this as a whole? You think it's a pretty good change?
Yeah, I mean, this has been one of the big three things that people have been asking for to be reverted that came in 9.0. And so definitely, the specifics of how it's implemented and the classes that are left out, I think are worth talking about, and we are going to talk about them today. But let's not lose sight that this is like a massive reversion back towards when the game was better in this area. So love to see it.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, like, was there really anything that you guys saw that JPC or Dorki that was omitted? Obviously, Outlaw Rogue is the main one, but was there other stuff that you guys really thought needed more stuff? Maybe Fury Warrior?
Hard to say.
Yeah, one thing I'm certainly glad I didn't see in there was a spinning crane kick. So, but I thought, I guess Fury Warrior maybe a little bit, but they already have really strong cleave, and I don't know, maybe at the end of the day it all comes down to like the tuning, right? Because just because they uncap something doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to do more damage. Like, it could be a nerf from 5 to 8 targets or from 8 to 13 targets or something, and it just so happens that it works on like certain dungeons. But I think in general the list was pretty good, except for Outlaw Rogue.
Yeah, for tanks, I would say kind of sucks that Blood DK didn't get more uncapped AoE, especially considering it's like by far the weakest damage tank at the moment. But I am sort of glad to see that they didn't touch Proud Warrior too much. I mean, obviously they should just uncap everything, but Proud Warrior is one of the outliers at the moment. I feel like Proud Warrior's 5 target damage is probably the highest amongst all tanks. So sort of like Windwalker, if they uncapped Proud Warrior, that class would be insane.
Yeah, the Windwalker discussion is an interesting one, right? Because like, obviously Windwalkers would rather be uncapped, but if you took their current damage and you uncapped it, like even on a 10 target pull, they're already winning right now. So if you uncap that, that's like, I don't know. Definitely worth mentioning that there is more changes that haven't been announced yet, right? The version we actually get is going to be different than this list. Just because Outlaw's not on there now doesn't mean that they won't do something for Outlaw. Just because specs are on there, like JPC was saying, maybe the numbers are going to come down from the specs that are on here. And so I would say don't panic too much. Another thing that's really important about this is the specifics of reduced damage beyond 5 targets. That language is not very clear, and there's a lot of different things it could mean, right? Think back to Twilight Devastation. That thing did full damage to 5 targets, then it did half damage to the next 5 targets, and then it did no damage to the 11th target. That's very different than something that like splits its damage among all targets hit, which doesn't look like this is, or something that's like square root falling off afterwards and falls off pretty quickly after the 5th target. So all of that specifics does matter a lot for how much different these specs will feel.
Are there any like big losers here? Because to me, there could be some specializations that were already previously uncapped that would get adversely affected. The main one is probably Affliction Warlock, right? That's the one that comes to mind whenever I think about it, is like maybe AF is a little bit worse off now that all of this other stuff is being uncapped.
Yeah, I mean, well, like Dratnos said, part of the I've seen like full heated debates on what this specific sentence means, because right now, like sub and assassination are technically capped at 8 targets, and if you reduce their damage to 5, full damage at 5, then they could be worse in a lot of the dungeons than they currently are. But if it's staying like their base is at 8 and it's only positives after that, then it would look good for them. So yeah, we need to see once these are implemented on the PTR build, like how it'll actually all play out. But I think Affliction is pretty safe. There's a higher probability that Affliction's worse off than it's better off, probably.
Yeah. Another thing that we got to discuss, Dorki made a pretty interesting tweet too. And it says, hate to be that guy, but unless Blizzard specifies how it works, AoE cap is going to be largely unchanged for Mythic Plus players. Dork, you want to elaborate on this a little bit further as to what you potentially meant?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is I don't know exactly how it works, just like how Janos was talking about earlier. If they decide to make it go with that route where they decide to split the damage, which is sort of unlikely, but hypothetically, if that was a thing, it would definitely still help in some situations, like helping tanks with aggro and helping cleave down mobs more evenly when there's bolstering or something like that. But it could also just mean that we're going to be doing roughly the same damage and that you'd probably be playing the same classes still. Because, I mean, there's still the true uncapped AoE classes, like Fire Mage, the prime example, or Boomkin. And you would still be playing those over a lot of these classes that are getting quote-unquote uncapped.
Yeah, it's also so interesting to me because it's not like the AoE cap affected the size of the pulls that you're making. A lot of the times it comes down to like what the dungeon realistically allows with their trash packs. Like, there are so many caster mobs and fervents and all this other stuff. You can only go realistically so big before you end up having this issue where you just like, you don't have enough kicks. Your tank could only tank a pack for so long. And on top of that, sure, like even if the damage is increased, like so say the cap was like completely removed off of all of these abilities, you're not, more often than not, it doesn't feel like you're restricted based on how much damage you're doing to the pack, right?
Yeah, that's something people have been talking about on Twitter too. Like I noticed a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, guess tanks have to pull bigger now," but not really.
Yeah.
I mean, you're already pulling as big as you possibly can.
Yeah, and I think like even like we saw today in like Theater of Pain, for example, in the MDI, like that scenario is probably the largest pulls that you could possibly see done in Theater of Pain. And even there, most of them are 5-7 targets, maybe you play them with a boss or something, but like the reality is a lot of the dungeons, because they're so linear and the mobs are positioned where they're positioned, it's not really feasible to pull more than the target cap already anyways. Like, of course, you have the outliers like Ardenweald and DOS and Halls of Atonement, but like in Spires of Ascension, you can only pull so big because you got like 3 mobs, then you fly on an angel. And so I think in it, like half the dungeons, it wouldn't have any effect at all. But, depending on what the damage looks like, it could shake things up in the other dungeons. Like, I don't think you would actually pull bigger, but you could see classes that weren't really considered premier classes for key pushing in like a tyrannical Halls of Atonement all of a sudden rise to the top or something like that. You know what I mean? So.
Right. It's like if you could pull big, you already were, and you just weren't inviting, the specs that were capped, right?
Different classes.
Yeah. So now you can bring them. Another class I realized we missed when we were talking about ones that were absent from that list, like trick shots for MM Hunter. Pretty big omission also too, that I'm sure people they've already typed the comment and sent it.
Yeah.
Angry that we didn't.
Saw the Yoda tweet.
Yeah, it's definitely one that I hope that spec gets thought of in some ways. Well, it doesn't have to be that every spec gets fully uncapped at 5, but the ones that are staying capped at 5 definitely need some help in other ways, right?
Yeah, you'd like to see some sort of tuning or I don't know, changes to their class kids. Like if they're dead set on keeping Outlaw capped at 5, like I don't know, give us back wits as a passive or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Fix the Necrolord legendary.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's a big one too.
It was so weird to me too
Because
the stuff that is capped, like MM Hunter and Windwalker Monk do just an absurd amount of AoE damage, and they are target capped, but they're still some of the highest AoE damage in the game, even while they're target capped. And so, to me, it doesn't even look like it's going to be that big of a damage change. It's probably going to end up being more of like a, I feel like I can hit these targets better kind of thing.
One thing, like certain classes have, if they become uncapped, they become a lot stronger. So if you think about like Assassination Rogue, for example, just due to the nature of its kit, like if you hit every mob with your Fan of Knives, then now every mob has Deadly Poison, which doesn't have its damage affected by the target cap because you just like put it on each mob individually, right? Or like you get a combo point per crit. So if you hit 20 mobs instead of 8 mobs, you're way more likely to go to 6 combo points. You do a lot more damage. stuff like that. But not every class has synergy with the kit like that and hitting more targets. But certain classes will be winners more so than others, probably. But the Windwalker damage is probably here to stay.
Dude, Windwalker damage is really silly. Is this going to affect the MDI meta?
Something about that. Oh, actually, I was thinking about that. Because, I mean, I was talking with my team, and Yoda and Growl thinks that it's going to come out before the finals. But, like...
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility, right? Like,
yeah, but that would be weird.
Because we had, last MDI season, there was the Tyrannical nerf that came out, like, between Cup weekends. That was a pretty big deal. This time around, I mean, this would be way bigger. Well, that's always the thing about the MDI, right? Is it's just like when the live servers change, so does the MDI. It doesn't like play on a previous patch or anything.
I mean, there was one week that they gutted Windwalker Monk and MM Hunter just in between cups, and then the week after that they just rebuffed Windwalker Monk to being good again. Do you think that this would change the MDI meta at all, Dorky? Or do you think that this is just one of those things that you just have to wait and see?
I think it would make Sub-Rogue and Frost Mage that much more powerful. Like, the fact that those two classes are already picked at the moment and they're half-capped. Well, mostly Frost Mage is like half-capped and then Sub-Rogue is like straight-up capped. But like, them being uncapped now is actually kind of crazy.
Yeah, definitely. It's the kind of thing though where like it might actually be not something you're hoping to see. Like if you're Frost Mage and you're like happy with how you are in the MDI right now, and you see that something's changing about your specs, like, oh, maybe this means Blizzard's gonna hit me with the old 50% nerf on Frozen Orb damage or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking with Billy and with Ching Xin, who's one of the Chinese fire mages and who played in the Great Push, and they're a little bit worried that now if Frozen Orb's hitting everything, then you're gonna have like 100% Rune of Power uptime, and their damage is just gonna be crazy. And if Glacial Spikes is uncapped, like that's the AoE pad heaven legendary, and they already do so much. So
Glacial Fragments,
Glacial Fragments, but right.
That thing is so OP too. I think Frost Mage for me was the biggest surprise coming into this MDI. I thought that was just only gonna be fire.
It's actually what we thought about too. Well, because like the biggest thing is their funnel damage is insane. And they just always have damage. I think those are like the two biggest factors. Because like MDI is not really about overall damage. It's more about the damage that speeds up the key. Like it's all about speed. Doesn't matter if you're playing something like Warlock that does crazy amounts of overall. You need the classes that can kill the single targets really fast, or like the priority mobs.
Let's go round table about this. Does this inspire hope for the future? We've seen a lot of different stuff in 9.15 changing, and there's a lot of good stuff, including the target cap. Do you think this inspires hope for the future, Dratnos?
I mean, I think it's hard to say no to this one, right? Like, obviously they're changing the game for the better on this and on the Covenant swap, the Conduit energy. All of this stuff is clearly good. So, like, yes, I'm more hopeful now than I was 2 weeks ago. Obviously, it's still, they added these systems in the first place, so you can't give them too much credit for fixing a problem that they created, we're told was a problem for the whole time, and then fixed like a year after they really should have known that they should have fixed it. But still, does inspire hope, yeah.
Dorky, how you feeling? About the same?
I would like to be more optimistic, but like I have mixed feelings about these things. I always feel like Blizzard probably gets that idea where they're like, oh, okay, we made this great change, everyone's happy now, let's just keep it at that. They might stay complacent, but I'm hoping that there's gonna be more of these kind of changes. I want them to be more progressive with this.
JPC, not hard to say. You agree?
Yeah. I think so long as they sort of keep this philosophy going into 9.2, like we don't see any reversion towards like the negatives that were present in the game coming in 9.1, then it's like a good hopeful sign for the future. But if they come out with these changes and then 9.2 just has a bunch of chores and this and that, then we'll have to see then. But I'm hopeful, yeah.
All right. So all things considered, do you guys think Master Loot is going to come back? With all
no way, man.
Please,
no way.
Dude, I don't know why this is on here. I've been told to ask this.
That JB tweet sums up exactly what I feel about it.
Oh, you want to get more loot? Yeah. He was
it's what, 20 people get their paychecks and they want to hold a vote to see if 16 get more than the other 4, and the vote wins 16-4, so they assume it's overwhelmingly popular. Right, that one.
There was also the other one where it's like, AoE capping rules, hell yeah, and then
Yeah.
what else? Yeah, 9.1 covenant changes, 9.1.5 covenant changes, hell yeah. And then when people bring up Master Loot, it's like, I don't know about that one. We're gonna have to step back a little bit.
Well, all DPS love Master Loot, of course. It allows me to get loot faster.
Yeah, I mean, I personally would be happy to have it, especially like even when I was tank, I would have been happy to have Master Loot and help the guild progress a little faster, but I get why they don't want to have it. I get, like, most people raid for gear and don't raid for their guild's progression, and that's like Master Looter means that you have the 2 different things fighting each other. I do wish they'd let us trade a little bit more.
And all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's funny because for the longest time, I wanted Master Loot to come back. And now that I'm going to be raiding seriously next year, in my head, I'm like, oh man, if Master Loot's back, I need to have like 5 rogues. And like, so, there's pros and cons, but I don't know. It's a tough one. I think so long as there's more freedom about trading, it'd probably be fine to not have Master Loot in the game.
Yeah, I did a video a couple days ago, and my suggestion is give me like 7 item level buffer. So, if I get a 252 and I have a 246, like sometimes that 252 is not an upgrade, just let me trade those 252s in that circumstance. And also just let me trade any trinket, right? If I've got Sylvanas trinket and a good M+ trinket, there's a good chance that whatever stupid trinket comes off of whatever other raid boss is not an upgrade for me. So just let me trade it.
Yeah, I like those. I think those would be good.
I think that those would be a reasonable compromise, and probably one that Blizzard may consider in the future. So with that said, anything else from you guys? Any more lamenting about the target cap?
Good riddance.
Buff Outlaw.
Yeah. Fix bone spike.
Dorky, got anything to say about Blood DK?
I mean, Bone Storm's looking good, maybe. If anyone plays it.
Dorky,
but Bursting Swords is being uncapped. Dude,
no.
I want Unholy DK to be back, but it's very unlikely.
NA's gonna need to find a new tank if Dorky's going back to Unholy. All right.
I was thinking about how sick it would be in MDI.
Dude, I remember Dorky topping the meters on Shadowlands Beta as Unholy DK. He was pumping.
No, Unholy DK was blasting.
Back when Blue D&D was the meta.
Yeah,
those couple weeks. Yeah.
Dude, that was not fair.
Those are good times.
So that's going to be it from us today. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Do all the other things that you do down in the description.
Ring that wacky bell.
Yeah, type comments about how JPC looks extra buff today. He's been making sure to continue to go to the gym, even though he's been stuck in MDI jail. And that's going to be it from us today. Hope you guys all have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you guys later.